¿Cómo va? How are you, my friends? ¿Cómo va, gente? ¿Todo bien? Uh, we are here to talk, to chat with Christian, the director of Video Man, Video Mannen. That's the Swedish name of the movie. ¿Cómo va, gente? Jackie, hey, hi. Christian, hi. Excellent. Here we are, ready to start. Estamos listos para empezar. Going to speak in English, of course. But hi, Jackie. Hi, Gabi. Let me think. Go here and go. Ready to start. I have to. Hey, Christian. Welcome. It's good to have you here.
Very nice to be here.
Here we ready with my mate, and I hope you have a drink, a coffee, something warm. Oh,
I have some
great.
Coke. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Well, we are here to talk about Video Mannen. I don't know if I'm pronounced it correctly, Video Man.
That's true. Video
But
Man.
also about Diallo. I found a funny interview that they made that where they ask you about Fulci and Argento, and you choose Argento, unlike the character of your film. Why Argento and not Fulci? That's my first question.
Yeah. I think it comes down to first discovery, nostalgia. Argento was my first love in the Italian horror cinema, and I mean, nostalgia is such a powerful thing, and since he was kind of my roots, and then I discovered Mario Bava and Fulci later on, and I think maybe Argento is more solid if you look at here his output, at least until the 90s. I think every piece he did is very solid. Hence, Fulci is more. He has made many masterpieces, of course, but also some not so good films. I think. He has made so many of them, and I don't like the comedies, for instance, and So it comes down to that. I think Argento is. He's more consistent, creating good work.
Why did you decide to express an opinion in favor of Fulci through the character of your film, Ennio, like Ennio Morricone? Why did you decide to do that? It was like an inside joke, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's based on a real character that he used to tell me this every time I saw him, that he owned a video store way back in the 90s. And he also, when he told me his name, he said, my name's Ennio, and I didn't really, like Ennio Morricone, okay, then I understand. And that's something he always says to people that meets him and you, that, and he kind of laughs, and he's really happy about that, having the same name as the Grandmaster.
Yes, the other day we were talking, you told me that in Sweden, there is the Swedish cinema is not fond of horror. There is no much horror films except of a masterpiece called Let the Right One In. But there are a lot of fans. There's a strong horror community. Can you talk me? Can you tell us the community? You are part of that community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it started way back in the 80s when VHS came to the scene, and many of the collectors today have also lots of nostalgia on renting their first videos. And in the beginning, the censor was like they didn't have a good system, so they released very hardcore stuff that then they censored. And I think that the feeling of totally unknown, looking at these all beautiful covers in the video stores and bringing them home, and that was kind of the starting point of this, and like getting into new worlds that you haven't been seeing on the. I mean, so many good films were released on VHS that you couldn't see in the cinema. So it was like an overflow of Italian horror and stuff like that. Really, yeah, subversive stuff. And then they started to control that, and it was like a constant hunt to get down these copies of these films. So I think it started with and also we had a big debate on this: is video violence in any way, can it damage the people, the youngsters who sees this? Can it inspire violence and so on? It's a constant debate that, I mean, now it's video games and it goes on and on, this thing. So it's kind of the forbidden zone, like a twilight zone that it was very fascinating to many of us stepping out in that.
Yeah, actually, it's always the same excuse. They are trying to blame all this artistic expression for all the violence that happened in real life. That has nothing to do with art, but with politics, economics. You know, all different aspects. Well, media that spread all this violence through news. Actually, Michael Moore, Bowling for Columbine, talk about this issue. I'm thinking of the movie by Censor by Brano Bailey Bond, because that happened in a period where all these films were banned by Margaret Thatcher's government. It was very strict. So in your country, in Sweden, there was a similar censorship. It was kind of strong, like very, very harsh, like in UK, or more so?
Yeah, it was like they had a program called Studio S, where it was like the starting point of this revolution, like moral panic they created around all these films like Chainsaw Massacre and, you know, zombie films by Fulci and other. There was a label called Video Invest that's in my film as well, that was famous for all these terrible horrors that wasn't good for the youngsters. So they kind of made this program where they faked, they talked to young, and they edited it together, so it looked like everybody was really damaged by these films, and then they 20 years later on they seeked up these youngsters and they admitted that they've been like pushed in that direction to fit the propaganda.
That's really weird, because we always hearing from Sweden and all the Nordic countries, a very liberal politic concerning artistic expression. I didn't know it was so harsh in Swedish against all these films. Wow.
Right.
Well, that's very well. In Argentina, we also have a period of censorship. Especially, they censor two things: these horror films, and also the sexual explicit, like Last Tango in Paris, all that. But it was different because in Argentina we have dictatorships and all that, like in Latin America. I want to ask you about your beginnings, as not only as I know you study in UCLA, but I want to start from the beginning when you were little, where this passion for horror and then for storytelling came.
Yes, I think it started with Alfred Hitchcock, and I watched half Psycho. I was much too little, and my dad came in, and he stopped it just after the shower scene, the famous shower scene, and I didn't get to watch the whole thing, so I was sent to bed. But that put such a strong I mean, it made its mark on me, and after that, I was obsessed by seeing this film from beginning to end. And then when I was, I mean, people, friends, we were getting copies of these films and started to watch it in secret. And we started with Hitchcock. That's kind of not that bold today. I mean, and he also talked about less is more. But I think that's the starting point, the Alfred Hitchcock, and I wrote a piece on him in university. Before that, it's like in college, if you say, compared to American college, and but at that time I didn't know it was possible to make to have this as a work. And again an income on it. It was kind of just a dream world for me, watching films all the time and making copies on you know watching films on really bad VHS copies, and I think then I got in touch with it was like a Swedish horror film festival around Halloween in Gothenburg where I live, that they had an all-nighter, and there I came in touch with like Argento and stuff that I never heard about. So it was like a total awakening, early 90s, and where I met people, part of this community, and they was really nice to me and let me visit their homes where VHSs everywhere on films like I've been trying to watch but never. So I wasn't. I mean, I was invited into this, and I was kind of mainstream before that, Hitchcock and Brian De Palma and stuff like that, which I loved. But then I discovered the Italian industry in the 70s, 60s, and I was blown away by that. And I think it was so interesting because these films were like artists working with Fellini and Bertolucci. They were like Vittorio Storaro. He shot Argento's early films, and it was like such a wonderful time where high and low culture kind of meshed in these films. So it was both the something considered not high art and high art combined, and that was really a starting point for me, that I felt I loved some of the commercial films, but I sometimes didn't. I think the characters were too not well developed. So I kind of, that started a planted a seed in me to make films that felt like horror films, but wasn't maybe a horror film at its core. So the genre bending was something that I think the Italian films started to open my eyes for that, and that is I think something that I'm really fond of and want to.
Now, you study at UCLA, and then you get all this interest from the Italian subversive horror. What difference do you think between the horror I used to produce in LA, that I'm sure you knew back then, and the creative process for in other countries like Italy?
Sorry, come again with that question.
You have the chance to compare the whole, the creative process in LA and the creative process in other countries. For you, what are the main differences?
I think, it was wonderful to be in LA in those formative years, because it was like a melting pot in people from all around the world. Attended UCLA, and so we got a cultural diversity that was really nice that you couldn't find in Sweden, for instance. So you kind of got to choose what I like this, but not this, and maybe the most mainstream stuff didn't appeal to me. But still, some of them I still to this day love Brian De Palma, and some of the Hitchcocks and stuff like that. But I also was very in love with American 70s drama films, like Five Easy Pieces, Taxi Driver, Deer Hunter, humanity of those films. So that I discovered that I wanted that social reality in the characters, but I wanted to surround them with the mystique and the ambience of these beautiful horror films, mainly from Italy at that time. So yeah, I mean that it was I think many have said that when you're a real cinephile, you go through different areas. You start with mainstream, of course, because that's what's easiest you get access to, and then you go down in these rabbit holes and get very obsessed with very narrow genres and stuff, and then you go back to maybe more art house and get really highbrow, watch Antonioni and stuff like that, and then you I think when you come around to it, it's the combination that feels why should it be one or the other? I that's a common problem I've been having in Sweden when I'm trying to finance films, that they ask me, okay, is this a drama or is it a horror film? And I say it's both. And that's usually a problem, because maybe they think it's harder to market it. Of course, it's a commercial forces that come into this. But I say, I mean, it's happening lots of that today. I think the horror genre is back in, really. I mean, I think in late 90s, early 2000, it was almost gone. But now it's back with a vengeance, I would say. And also they make films that are I mean, have you seen some of Ben Wheatley's stuff, like Kill List? Or I mean, it contains so many different things. It's a human drama. It's a horror. But still, it's not. I mean, I think the hardest balance when you want to do genre bending is to not make it stick away in too many paths. You must feel a coherence to the whole piece, and that I think that's a challenge. But that's what I really want to do. I want people to feel connected to. I want them to understand the characters, even if they're often. I'm very drawn to anti-heroes.
It's Enion, and I mean the character of your film. I mean the thing I love the most about your film is that it is presented as kind of in the beginning as a psychological thriller, but in a way it's deep down it's it gets some being a drama and a tribute to all this horror, this nostalgia. And in a way, that's why it's difficult to label your film. But I think it belongs to the horror tradition because you use a lot of research from the horror of De Palma, from horror of the 70s. I mean, at the same time, you use research from the Italian giallo just to build this homage, and that was wonderful. I mean, it was your idea in the beginning. And how did you get the actor? Because I know he's kind of famous in Sweden.
Yeah. How I got in touch with him, or what was that your question? How I
Yeah,
got in,
how
yeah.
did you conceive the idea, and then how could you convince the actor? Because I know he works more in mainstream Swedish films.
Right. Actually, I was. This was a project. Was the first script I ever wrote, and I wrote it in LA when I was there. And when I got back to Sweden, I got a quite big name called Sven Wollter, a big idol of mine, that I met at like this pub, and I couldn't resist and go to talk to him, and said, I love your work, and I have a really low budget film here. Would you care to take a look at it? And he was so, yeah, it was very nice, and he did it. And he called me like a week later and said, I would like to do this. I love this film, and we can do it like very low budget. At that point, Dogma, the Danish, do you know about that? That Lars von Trier and Thomas Winterberg created a really low budget kind of filmmaking, and he had just one of those. He made one of those films, and he wanted to make Video Man like that. So we worked on that for a couple of years, but then it just sank. His wife died, and circumstances made me put it in the shelf and forgot about it until many years later, when I've been doing commercials, and I felt like it's now or never. I need to do my first feature that I've been dreaming of for 20 years or something. And I was kind of fed up with this very superficial world of but I built some money that I could put into the project as well, and I got in touch with Stefan Sauk, that's his name, and I sent him a short draft of, because I continued to, through the years, I brought this from out of my shelf, and I wrote a little bit, and then I put it in again, and I tried, since that, at that point it was around a video store owner when they still were around, and it was really fascinating. I met a really fascinating guy who told me so crazy stories about this, like he was hunting customers who didn't return the tapes, and that was a film. It was a totally different film. So I think it's two scenes from that film have survived into this new thing. But I thought it was interesting to see where is this guy nowadays in the digital area. What has happened to a guy like that? And he's kind of washed out, and he has his best years behind him, since he was like a king of the hill in his small piece, and he's a really prestigeful guy. So when he finds a really valuable film, and he still has a dream to open up a VHS store again, and he has stuffed all this film in his cellar where he's also sleeping. He has nothing, so he's really worn out, and he drinks too much, and so I wanted to see if he could try to get back on track. In a way, it reminds me of my son is right now watching Cobra Kai, the series. It's kind of the same premise, where downbeat guys trying who is stuck in the 80s when he was like a big shot, and now he's nobody, and he's trying to reach that. I think that's very fascinating, and I'm a big fan of Prestige, and I think it's so much black humor in that.
Yeah, that's an interesting comparison. There's a question here where he said, mente retorcida, Twitchy says, What do you think about these people who want to separate drama from horror, even knowing the drama must be contained in every film work?
What I think about drama mashed with the horror, I think it's like any genre. It needs to go through some evolution, and I think we have seen very. I mean, the put out is, I would say, 50% what we've seen before, and I'm that kind of guy who would kind of pretentious, but I want to push boundaries and try something new to motivate me to work on a film for 3 years, let's say. And I think guys like Ari Aster with his Hereditary and Midsummer is kind of doing something new with it, where it's kind of it's almost like an Ingmar Bergman film in a way, but it's also a horror film. And I really like to be invested in the characters, even if you kill them off in 20 minutes, that you feel like, why? This was such a promising character. I wanted to see. So I often feel like, I mean, Terminator is not a horror, it's a sci-fi, but I love like the first 20 minutes, the first act of Terminator. And I would like to see the day, like the regular days of Sarah Connor and her mates continue a little bit longer. So sometimes I like the films until like the third act or even the second act. I think they kind of lose my interest when it gets too obvious. I love horror that's like under the surface as long as possible. Maybe a bit old school, also like early 80s stuff with like The Changeling, or I really loved House of the Devil, Ty West. I think that is a beautiful film, and it's such a, I like that slowly creeping feeling, and that is kind of the thing I want to do in my next film. Is like it got the mood of a horror film, but the horror never appears. Almost, maybe it does in the end, but I like to have that surrounding. You feel like something's off, but you really don't know until the very end what it is. And also, I don't want to close the picture totally. There needs to be some questions, some mystery. I love the mystery, and I want some kind of mystery to still be there when the film is finished, so you can go back and try to puzzle together what's really happening here. So not too obvious horror is kind of my
No, I mean, and that's the most disturbing horror. The other day we were talking about how genre in general, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, it's a way of expressing social problems, social issues in a metaphoric way, in a very smart way.
Right.
Sometimes to talk about issues that are very uncomfortable. And in your film, it's interesting because we talked the first time we talked. I mentioned that I asked you if in Swedish alcoholism and loneliness is a issue there, and you told me, well, it is for a generation. And I think, well, in this case, I find interesting that your character, instead of becoming addicted to alcohol like the other character, he is addicted to nostalgia. That's what was your intention when you developed the story.
Yeah. The main theme of the piece from the beginning was outside the ship, because when I started to know this video rental owner, he what I found interesting with him was that I mean, he had no time for nothing else. He loved film, and he watched the film every night when he came home from the store. But, he also had almost not time to do the washes. You know, this was his life. This shop, and I was really fascinated about the thought that what you maybe like most in life becomes your prison. So that passion can create outsidership. So I think the main theme of the Video Man is outsidership. Both these main characters are outsiders since they're kind of stuck in the past, but they're also very nerdy people, delving down into passions they have. So they're kind of they have a tough time keeping up with the times. And it's not a critique to modern times, but still I think there's since I know many collectors and moved around in that circle, that's a very common problem.
Well, the problem nowadays, I think, it's the lack of real community. We talk a lot about community in social media, wherever social, but the truth is, loneliness and depression is an issue now in the present in many countries, and I think this kind of community, real communities, I mean, people getting together to talk about the things they love, it's a normal response, and it's not new. I mean, now we are looking for that, and in a way, I've been a fan of this kind of genre in literature and film all my life, and I'm also very social, so I have the chance to meet people all around the world just to talk about. I study economics, but still I'm a fan of this genre. Now I'm trying to change my career, but I found a lot of people from different countries, like from Germany, United States, Mexico, Colombia, and through this passion, because it is, I think the problem is not the passion of the collector, but the problem is to find a sense of community, and that's what's important, because otherwise you become a slave of nostalgia. That's a problem with Ennio. You have this addiction to the past instead of building, using his passion, a community around. He's like, of course, he's suffering from depression. That's, I think, an interpretation of mine. But the problem is not that you like horror films. That's great. We should take that with a proactive approach. That's what I think. What do you think about it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So otherwise, I would end up like Ennio, and that was also a thing that made me want to do this piece, because when I saw this guy, I kind of was. It was like a nightmare. I have nightmares about this. I'm going to end up like him. I must find some way to get out of that, and I think for me it was getting involved with the film business and try to make this not only be a what is it, like almost a peeping Tom watching this thing in my living room, hidden away from the world, working like a day job that I didn't like, and just fleeing, drinking beers and watching movies all night. And I think that's it's both a salvation and it's a way downhill race in the end when you get older, and people around you get like ordinary lives, and they don't have time to meet up. And so like you told me the other day, because I've been also pretty bad at this social media thing, but I mean, it's amazing to sit here and talk to you in Argentina and fans around the world. And I think the festival circuit is a wonderful thing for the horror festivals, meeting up people and it's a phone call away if you want to talk to somebody in Africa or whatever. So
actually, we have we are doing this Sunday talk with different directors from all over the world. If you want to join us to talk about horror, you're welcome. We invite people from everywhere, and actually, there's a very strong growing community in Latin America of festivals. We have the Buenos Aires Rojo Sangre, Red Blood Festival. And well, I hope you can present your next film in next year in the festival, if it is
it would be
possible.
wonderful. Yeah, it would be wonderful.
You told me you've never been to Latin America.
No, not yet. It's on the bucket list.
Yeah. That really because something I discovered talking to people all over the world is that you can do this cultural exchange and also standpoint, right? So you end up knowing also that, for example, I talked to a lot of people from Russia, and I discover, like rock bands, filmmakers, writers, and oh my God, people who know this. Oh, like I'm a proactive guy. I call them and say, okay, let's do this. Or I watch Video Man and say, okay, people, you should know Kristian. He's a cool guy. He made this film, short film. Oh wow, that's kind of idea. I was watching your short films when you start. There are two with Alicia Vikander before he was, movie star, and it's kind of funny because it's a very good short films, and at the same time you can see the passion of a student. What do you remember about those years?
Yeah, since I went to school in the US, and then I was determined to come back to Sweden to really take Sweden by storm. And I felt that that's a piece of cake, and I was really smitten by the LA, personality. I'm kind of from the beginning a kind of introverted guy, but there I was building this kind of more outward going persona. And when I got back, me and my friend had written a script that we thought we approached like 4 different producers in 1 week, and went to a lot of meetings. And I think I was my mouth was little bit too big at that time. I was naive, and I was criticizing some of the Swedish films made at that time. And the producer actually said I was actually co-writer on that one. So I mean I blew my gun pretty bad there, and I was a tough time getting there. So the mentality of the Swedes, I didn't have any contacts. I mean, if you get your education in Sweden, you get the contacts during the stay at the school, of course. So it was like a blank page coming home. So it took me a while to really get to know people around here and how it works. So yeah, I started making commercials, and I took whatever job I could and tried to do my shorts at the same time. And then I did everything myself those years. I mean, it's not the optimal way to go, but since I didn't get money for my feature films, and they wanted to buy my script, but they wouldn't let me direct it. And then they told me you must do shorts to show your skills. And so I did my shorts, doing everything myself basically. And I mean that has its charms, and it's a very good lesson. But I think they suffer from that, and mainly the editing to really know how to. They often went on too long, and some technical things were good, others wasn't. So they're kind of it's nostalgia, but some of them I can't watch almost today. But I think that yeah.
You're like Ennio in this way, but you are trying to avoid being like Ennio in a way with your own short films.
Exactly.
No, well, yeah.
I think
How do you say?
the last short I made in 2014, I think holds up pretty well. It's called Smink or Makeup in English. So I think that's a pretty good one. And also Susan's Longing, I think, holds up pretty well. It's a bit too long, but it's I'm getting there, at least. So.
If you have to define the social aspects that the cultural aspects that you can see in Swedish films, especially in genre films. Let's talk about genre. I know there are not many, but they are, and they are very good. Which are the cultural aspects you think represent the Swedish culture in those films?
I think, like you said before, Let the Right One In, for instance, is it's kind of a, I don't want to generalize too much, but Swedes are a bit more reserved, I think, and maybe loneliness is more of a common theme around here. People, I think, often that outsidership. Especially in that film, outsiders finding each other and maybe sitting on bad ideas, like in Tax Drive, for instance. I wouldn't call that a horror film, but it's definitely got. So I think that's a theme, and maybe we're getting to there are kind of big the social classes are expanding, like rich people and poorer people, and but there's so few horror films made, pure horror films. But I mean, Gräns, Border. Did you see that one with the trolls?
One of my favorite films. Actually, I talked to Eva. We are trying to coordinate a live with her.
Yeah.
Because I told her that she was amazing in series, and for me it was a beautiful. I mean, it was so beautiful. I see the subjects you describe, the idea of being lonely and the necessity to find someone alike, right? Like Ennio is to find a partner to watch movies. In Let the One In, he finds this girl vampire. He doesn't care if he's a vampire because he feels like she's like him. And well, in Border, the metaphor is it's stronger in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think what I have hard time in is, maybe I said it before, but it's a divided very much in Sweden. I think that it needs to be either like art house, very serious film with a subject on the top. What's this film about? It's about anorexia, or it's about I don't know, class issues, and they're all dramas mostly. And on the other spectrum, you have very commercial films like comedies, summer comedies, and police procedurals that they're really not breaking so much new ground. They're kind of using the formula. So it's either that formulaic, kind of very Hollywood-ish with less budget, and then more like the art house that needs to have a subject on top. And I think that's a bit narrow-minded. I mean, I think it can be both. And I think for me, the most important thing is character studies, delving into characters, more than like a subject. I love Mike Lee, and I like Dario Argento. So when I attended Fright Fest, Alan Jones, the great Alan Jones, Argento biographer, he told me that my film is kind of a meshing between Mike Lee and Dario Argento, with Dario Argento mood, and that's kind of what I want to do. I want to like a bit more serious stuff, or at least a serious look at the human nature, and combine it with the mood of these wonderful genre films. And in the genre films, sometimes they lack maybe character, so not always. So many good things coming. I think it's happening. I think UK is very good at that at the moment.
Yeah.
And
I think actually in the indie circuit, the short film indie circuit, actually we are organizing an international film festival, short film festival, because during my years studying abroad, I studied in Paris, Israel. I used to watch a lot of short films, and short film, it's a good way, especially in festivals, indie festivals, to discover new talent. Actually, there's a film, there's a film called San Mod. Then there's a film. There's many films that I discover through short films. I mean, I say, oh my God, this director, for example, the director of San Mod, I used to follow her because of her short film. Oh, wow. I say, oh, good for you. You are going to do your first film. Oh, good for you. And in a way, this idea, that's why I'm organizing a film festival right now with people from Latin America, because we want that new filmmakers, new artists in general, not only filmmakers, but writers also, to start developing this genre, because the narrow perspective they have in your country. It happened in Latin America. Latin America, the producers always say, oh no, let's do silly comedies and blah, blah, on realistic. No, we don't do that. And they're stupid and narrow-minded, because there's a lot of the horror community is very strong and very loyal with the directors. The directors, they don't know, but they are very loyal. I'm as a fan, I'm always helping them. So so in a way, that's why in a way also in Latin America is changing. A new talent, and that's why I'm doing this, introducing people and say, okay, let's do this, and well, I hope we can help you with your next film.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I love what you're doing, by the way. I think it's so great. Connecting, start making connections between these people around the world. But I must get back to Saint Maud. I think I was totally knocked out by that one. That's maybe the latest English UK. They're on the top of the game right now, and that's amazing. I was totally blown away by that. Maybe the first I really also saw inspiring was Kill List by Ben Wheatley. That was.
Yes. Yeah. When you saw a film like that, you say, "Oh my God, it's so good! I wish I could do a film like that." Because I know the creative process. It's like, okay, we always want to do the best film possible, the best, short film possible, but it doesn't always happen. No? And then when you see another film, say, oh, I need to do that. How can you do that? And but I totally agree. There's amazing filmmakers in UK. Again, there's something we talked about with Jerry Thompson, a journalist, horror fan, says that horror is a subversive genre. It rebels against mainstream authority. So I love when. That's why I think it's necessary to do these kind of films, because talk about social issues, it's easier to communicate it through this kind of genre, because they force you to talk about issues you don't feel comfortable talking to, especially in,
Right.
I think it's amazing. And also, I have seen a lot of from Norway.
Yeah.
Norway also is getting good. I mean, have you said Thelma, and the last one, The Innocents?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, he's amazing director, by the way.
Yeah,
I mean, he feels like he can do it all.
yeah,
Touching dramas
yeah.
and then this Thelma. I mean, he's a amazing talent, I would say. He's one of the great guns.
Yeah. That's
Absolutely.
no.
But I saw that you mentioned a film called The Innocents, right? It seemed, I watched the trailer and I was really intrigued. Have you seen that one? Or
Yeah,
The
I saw
Innocents?
it.
How
Yeah,
was it?
it's Thelma. It's the first one. I remember it's from 2017 when I watched the film Thelma. It's a from Norway. I start following the director because now I say, wow, this is good. This I like when they approach a subject, a known subject. I don't know, and they find a new way of telling this story or a new standpoint, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we have a lot of films about mental powers, blah blah blah, X-Men in
Right.
mainstream, but my favorite ones is the one that approached them in a kind of realistic, nightmarish way.
Yeah.
I remember a film from David Cronenberg, Scanners, that was like a nightmarish version of X-Men, and that's what I really appreciate when I saw this kind of film. It's when you approach it to reality, right? And the more
Yeah.
the more close to reality it is, the more disturbing
Yeah.
because this is real life. This is actually happening. I don't know what you think.
Right. Yeah. I think that's I like it's tough to draw to walls, brick walls, but I think it's usually that's the way I want. I think that usually appeals to me the most. But sometimes the film comes along like Terry Gilliam's Brazil or something that where it's very theatrical, but it's a masterpiece, and few directors can handle that as well. So yeah, I'm open for everything, but mostly the realistic approach to at least the people and the psychology. I think is important.
No, yes. When you combine this drama with sci-fi horror, the combination it's great. And again, it's about the stories because that's why Left the Right when it works. It's a
Yeah,
drama, well, dressed as a horror story, but it's a drama. But the use of the natural, supernatural element gives you this plus because it allows you to talk again. Sorry, are you there? Oh, sorry. I think you see. Oh, I think. I think trying to. Oh, bueno, se desconectó. Debe ser que se le acabó la batería o algo. Well, we can continue other day, but I hope you enjoy it. And well, see you next time. We can do another live if you wanted. It was very interesting, and please follow Chris. He's an amazing guy and a talent from Sweden.